social media is not a very forgiving place in a lot of ways. And that's why I always tell people to curate your feed for the mood that you want to have when you open an app. When you are consuming, I really want you to like feel how you are consuming the content. And if it makes you feel some kind of way that's not the way that you want to, maybe it's time to mute that or unfollow or hide for 30 days. I do that because comparison is freaking real and it steals my productivity.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 209 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. If you have a love-hate relationship with social media, raise your hand. Oh wait, just me? Am I the only one? I don't think so. These platforms are so engaging, right? They cause so much strife. People get canceled. Some people blow up and share beautiful things, and that's wonderful. But it's a complicated situation we have on our hands here. And today's guest, Karlyn Ankrom, kind of shed some light on how we can be more human in social media. If you've been toying with leaving social media or you're diving in deeper and you really want to understand it better, today's conversation is going to be super helpful. Karlyn is one of those entrepreneurs who has really figured out her own strengths in the world, right? Watched herself giving these strengths away to other businesses and other entrepreneurs and was like, wait a minute, what about me? And if you're a Game On Girlfriend watcher and or listener, you're probably in that boat as well. You start to recognize these talents you have are amazing and you can use them to start and run your own business. So I hope that part of her story is really inspiring, in addition to what you're going to learn about social media and how to use it well and what we can do to strengthen our presence online. Karlyn Ankrom is the founder and lead strategist of OSnap Social and creator of the Fan Firestarter Framework, a new approach to social media marketing made specifically for businesses who've had that feeling of being tempted to fake their own deaths and flee to Tahiti at the mere thought of content creation. Karlyn developed her user-friendly strategy after working for a decade with a variety of brick and mortar businesses who were decidedly social allergic. And not because they didn't want to do social media, but because they were intimidated by it. And in response, her new system helps newbies get on the fast track to unsticking their social media in just 1 hour per week. So if that's something that interests you, you know what I'm going to say. Pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Karlyn, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Likewise, Sarah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I love when we get to meet other women in arms who have started businesses and are like, oh my dear heavens, this is what I'm here to do. And I'm tired of doing it for everyone else. I believe your story is similar, but I would love for you to tell us, like, out of all the things on this planet, out of all the things you could have chosen to do on this planet, why is helping people create better calls to action on social media? I know it's more than that, but for starters, why is this what you do?
So I think it stemmed back to when I was 10 years old. So we're going to go there.
Let's go.
I loved writing. Yeah, I loved writing. I was that nerd that like was sitting at night, like writing into my composition book of all the things that happened that day. I'm also super nostalgic and I love telling stories, which led to being in that journalism realm in high school, writing for the yearbook, writing for the paper, being an editor of the paper, then my major in college, journalism, and then my senior year of college, Web 2.0. I know we're on Web 3 now, but Web 2.0 was like emerging and businesses were starting to use social media more. And I was like, ooh, this is what I want to do. And so it still was very new on the scene, but I knew that like, I didn't want to be a traditional writer. I can't handle being, someone that's reporting the news because a lot of news is bad news. And like, it's tough, I'm just not cut out for that. And so I was like, how can I help businesses and organizations amplify what they're already doing? And when social media came on the scene, I was like, this is what I want to do. So that's kind of the background. And then how I got started in my own business. I was working for a series of startups because people don't really know what to do with magical unicorns like myself that can do all the things when it comes to creating content. So my last role before I jumped ship into the wild world that is entrepreneurship, I worked for a branding agency and I managed all of our Twitter accounts for all of the 8 people that worked there, all different voices, all with different expertise, propped up HubSpot, propped up Basecamp. So that was like operations side, and wrote for the blogs and managed the other blog, right? Like I was basically running my own agency within this agency.
Yeah, I was just saying you literally were wearing all the hats, all of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
all of the things. So I was like, okay, I knew I always wanted to own my own business. I had been building up OSnap Social on the side for 3 years prior to that, because working for startups, layoffs happen.
Yes.
And that was like very much the reality. And so I turned 30 and I remember sitting there during a client meeting with a leadership coach. And she was like, most people come to me when they have this big milestone, whether it's like a milestone birthday or they're hitting the ceiling at their current organization and there's no more upward mobility in that company.
Right.
And I was like sitting there thinking to myself, is she talking to me? Like, is she talking to me right now? And so I actually like low key messaged her and I was like, hey, I think I need your help. Because I just didn't have like the gonads really to quit my full-time job because I value security so much.
Sure.
And in entrepreneurship, it is not reality. And so like those of you that are listening to this being like, oh, I don't know. I built a nest egg for myself first. I self-funded my business first of those 3 years working kind of in tandem with a full-time job. Was I working my butt off? Yes. Was I single? Yes. Did I not have kids yet? Also, yes. And so your circumstances, if you're a mom or you have a kid or you just have other people living with you, you probably can't work until 3 a.m. like I did. Like I was a crazy person, right? Like looking back,
and that is really what it takes sometimes, right? I mean, people think it's this magical, oh, I launched a business and 20 minutes later I had 5 million customers. And it's like, no, you didn't.
Social media does that, right? Like people are like, I got 10 million followers in 2 seconds. And you're like, okay, really? But you'd been building your account for 13 years before that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I quit my full-time job at 30 and went all in on social for OSnap Social. And it's been 5 years. So here we are.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I love hearing that. One of the stories, this is terrible, but I don't know if you watch Grace and Frankie on Netflix, but they do this thing where they launch it's a terrible business. Excuse me, all if there's littles, plug their ears for a hot second. But they launch a vibrator business for people who are older with arthritis so they can hold it, right? I'm like dying, right? And they have, it's hilarious. But they like do this online business. And so like in the next episode, they have so many orders, they don't know what to do. I'm like, nope. I'm calling it not real life, people, not real life. Even though
that's like best case scenario.
Doesn't happen like that, people.
No.
But it's so funny. We get the message all over the place, don't we? That it's just going to happen. Like if you build it, they will come. And it's like, kind of not really though. And especially with the online space being as loud as it is right now, I think what you're doing is really important. Now, I have to be totally honest with you, Karlyn. Like I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I really do. I know most people say that, but like, I really, really do. And I think, look, the power that's in social media for those of us who are business owners is extraordinary, right?
Yes.
Like we literally can, if we keyword things a certain way, or if we're running ads a certain way, we can literally interrupt someone's conversation with their friends and be like, hey, yo, did you know I have this business? I mean, automatically, and it does all this stuff, right? It's so great. And on the other side of it, right, to your point about you wanting to amplify the positive, and I really resonated with what you said about journalism, because I was interested in going into journalism too. And I was like, I can't be around this. I'm going to lose my mind, right? It's so negative. And I've been concerned about social media lately because that micro targeting that we can do with news, with anger, right? With fear, with all of the different things that we can now like needle somebody with really directly. It's like, I've had this like moral dilemma personally. I'm so happy you're here because you can straighten me out. But like, I've had this moral dilemma of like, do I participate in this? And obviously I kind of have to, we're business owners, right? We kind of can't not be on social media, but how can we do this in a way that is so responsible? Because being able to micro target people is such a gift for those of us that want to make a difference, right? We really want people to be happier. We want things to be going better, and to be able to get somebody right in a moment when they're scared or they're nervous and we can lift them up and make them happy. That's amazing. And we know other people are using the exact same tools to do the opposite. So how do you grapple with that? I don't know if you do, maybe you don't, but how do you interact with that? And what do you say about that? Because I just think this is such an important question. And I know I'm not the only one who has it.
I think it's one of those, have these conversations often behind the screen with my clients and who have moral dilemmas around like, do we do this now? Do we wait? And I actually just the other day was having a conversation with one of my former clients. We're very good friends. She's in the PR space. She's a publicist. She's also based here in DC. So we also have like that whole construct of like politics and all of that, that we're having to maneuver. She was supposed to launch her new program a few days ago when all the things started happening with Israel and Palestine. And she was like, I can't do this. It's not in me. It's not alignment with me. And I also need to make sure that I'm sensitive to those in my client network and beyond, that I'm paying attention to the news and that I'm navigating it how I see fit, and my program can wait. And I think that kind of opened up my eyes in a lot of ways to be like, okay, yes, we have to manage what's happening in the world around us in a social scenario, because often they're very much in alignment. So we have to navigate that with, I wouldn't say kid gloves, because like the world is coming at us very fast and we just have to navigate it the best way we know how to. If you're like, I am, someone who doesn't speak on those particular topics, then don't. If you're someone that does, then do. People can judge however they'd like, but for some people, they don't have a thumbprint on what's happening in the world and they want to remain positive of what's happening in their life. Cool. But it's also worth addressing that you're not naive to the fact what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
So it's to your point, it's complicated.
It is, right?
You have to look internally to figure out what feels the best to you. And I tell people, never post because you think this is what you should be posting.
Oh, please continue to say that, because, well, I think, there's such an area of copycatness, right?
Yes.
Online. It's like, oh, that's working for that person. Let me copy it and do it over here. And it makes everyone sound the same and be the same. And it's weird and none of us like it. And I found personally that I'll just stop posting for a hot second, because I'm like, I think I'm sounding like other people. This doesn't feel like us anyway. Something's wrong. And I think if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is really working with your clients is sort of enabling us or empowering us to really stick to what's true for us.
Yes.
And as world conflicts continue to happen, this is obviously not the only one going on as we're recording this now,
right?
But it's a big one, and we know what's coming, and we know it's important. That how do we as global citizens, because it's another thing social media has given us, right? Is we are now literally all global citizens. How do we do that in a way that has us be proud of our own behavior, that is true to us, and have us live in the reality that while this is happening and we don't see it stopping anytime soon for various reasons, we still need to work. And how do we balance that in a way that is caring and loving and true to ourselves? And it sounds like it's really sort of a check-in. We have a moral responsibility to do. I don't know. I hope you agree with that. Or maybe you don't, but let's talk about that.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And I think one of the examples, and as I was just talking to my PR friend the other day about kind of navigating these challenges of having some morals and understanding what's happening in the world. For example, when Blackout Tuesday happened during the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, I had a workshop that I had been promoting the crud out of. Like so much. I had 40 people signed up, paid, ready to go. That morning, I woke up to a bunch of black boxes on my Instagram and I was like, what is happening?
Right.
And I looked at it and I was like, okay, two options. One, cancel it and issue all those refunds, which low-key sounds like a nightmare. Or two, show up for the people who are expecting me to show up. I was having internal turmoil probably until like the last minute. And I showed up because I was like, if I show up, maybe no one else will show up, and that's okay. I showed up and I started that workshop acknowledging what was happening in the world. And I think people in the chat were receptive to that. And they thanked me for showing up anyway. And I said, here's what's happening on social. And it tied into what was happening. So I shed light on what was happening, but that was a business decision. And the personal decision was to show up and to show empathy and to acknowledge what was happening in the States at that time. And I think people were receptive to that, which I'm appreciative, because like, if I said no, then like there could have so I just made the decision that was best for me. Yeah, it's hard.
And I think that's the dichotomy that can be out there sometimes, that can have people be afraid to even do anything. And I've even found myself in that moment of like, whoa, I need to hang on for a second until I'm clear. There's also a false dichotomy out there, right? There's only one way to do this right. And it's like, well, that's never true. That is never true about anything. And I say that about business all the time. I'm like, you guys, there's not one way to market. There's not one way to be a good person. There's not one way to have integrity, right? There's so many different levels and nuances there. And we don't want to lose that and turn ourselves into AI, right? Where it's like, oh, I must now do this because the people are doing this. And it's like absolutely acknowledging and participating and then doing what's right for you with as much awareness and compassion as possible, because none of us are going to do it right all the time. And I think if we have that grace for ourselves in social media, we can have it for other people. But I also think the important piece there is role modeling the way. And if you'd been halfway through the workshop and you were like, okay, made the wrong call, people, my bad, we are fixing this, you could have. Right.
Yes.
And I think giving ourselves the space to be people again, who are going to make mistakes, but get better, and then make another mistake and then get better, and to not be afraid to show that to other people that we're just not going to get it right all the time. But I swear, when I don't get it right, I'm going to clean it up. And having that be part of the social media reputation as well, if you choose to, right? And I know everybody, again, even that's a personal decision and people can decide how to do that. But I got a feeling as you and I were sort of preparing for today's conversation that, you know, that's part of your deal is like, listen, there might be stuff you're not doing on social media. And like, let's talk about social media, like what's really happening and how we can use it well. And it is tricky for those of us who own businesses who really care. Like sometimes I feel like I shouldn't even watch the news because I get so worked up and excited about it. And I'm like, then I'm like, okay, whoa, where does this conversation belong? And there are times I feel it belongs everywhere and it's so important. It should be in every conversation. And other times I'm like, I don't know. And so I'll go out and say, do you guys want to talk about this? Because I think we should, but I don't know. Tell me what you think. And that sort of openness, I feel like can be missing on social media as well.
Yeah, I think just to touch on what you were just saying about giving yourself grace to get it wrong, giving yourself permission to get it wrong. What you followed that with was something that I want to just shed even more light on is having the grace for other people when they get it wrong. Social media is not a very forgiving place in a lot of ways. And that's why I always tell people to curate your feed for the mood that you want to have when you open an app.
I love that.
Like go through and if you're consuming, first of all, when you go onto any type of social network, you should be creating first and then consuming. But when you are consuming, I really want you to like feel how you are consuming the content. And if it makes you feel some kind of way that's not the way that you want to, maybe it's time to mute that or unfollow or hide for 30 days. I do that because comparison is freaking real. And it steals my productivity all the time. And I'm like, this isn't fair to me on where I'm going. So it's essential to do that as you're consuming content. Focus on where you want to go, not where everyone else is going, because everyone's strategy is different, as it should be. And that's part of the fun and also maybe the frustration of social media.
Yeah.
But can you ask me your question again?
It's almost like now I don't even remember, but it's like,
I don't remember what it was.
It was, what do you think about the idea that we can role model the way and be open to making mistakes? And I think, I'm going to back that question up with something else too, but it's this, the cancel culture, or like you were saying, the unforgiving nature of social media, what's in there. I think it's so damaging. And it reminds me of like medieval times, right? Where it was like, shame.
Yeah.
And I think what we forget sometimes, and I think it's so important we talk about this in the world of social media. And I know we're talking about calls to action and happy stuff too. And people are afraid to participate because of all this other stuff.
Yes.
And understanding that rage that we see sometimes, rage only occurs when anger is mixed with shame. And that's how rage happens. And so us pushing that shame out there all over people and on ourselves too. I'm such an idiot. I'm so sorry. Like, let's just go, oh my God, you guys, I totally messed up. I am so sorry. This is getting fixed.
Yeah.
Right. No shit. Like, I'm a person. This is part of being a person, is I'm going to make mistakes and I'll write them as fast as I can, but I can't ever expect myself to be perfect. Right. That idea. And that as we give ourselves permission to post and make mistakes or talk about things or not talk about things or only talk about our business and not touch on whatever it is that we choose to do, is to be careful about that cancel culture that exists because of social media. Right. That was not a thing before, except for medieval times where we would literally cast someone out so they die. This is the same thing. And it's like, do we really want to act like that? And who do we look to role model the way to be a little bit different in the face of all that?
I have just come to terms with like, I'm unapologetically myself. And what does that actually mean? It means like I show up on Instagram stories without makeup often. I had to do a podcast the other day, not ideal. how to do it from my car because mom life is real,
Yeah.
and
Been there, done that.
I have high performing Wi-Fi in my vehicle. We made it work. And it also tied into the fact of the conversation of being authentic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you should never have to apologize for who you are. And I believe that through and through. And reminding people that we're humans by showing up sometimes a little bit more candid is refreshing and also very much expected in the social media space, which I particularly love. I don't think a lot of people do that because they feel uncomfortable or they feel like they have to be like this person over here. But as soon as I unfollowed those people that I was feeling that kind of comparison toward, I could then show up as myself and do what I wanted to do, reach the goals that I wanted to reach. And a great analogy that I heard recently when I was at a conference was her daughter was swimming in a, swim team, and she was winning the race. She was about to touch that wall until she bloop, popped her head out of the water, looked around where everyone else was. And would you believe she lost the race?
Heavens to Betsy. Oh my gosh, it's such a great analogy. And so there's a famous picture of, was it Michael Phelps, right?
Yeah.
Where he's head down and his competitor's looking at him, right? You just reminded me of that.
Yeah.
But that is such a great representation of how we sabotage our own success, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the time.
Brilliant.
And so overthinking, a lot of my clients overthink every single word. And I love that for them because they care so deeply about their business and who they're trying to serve. But I will tell you, people don't remember what they had for breakfast this morning, let alone what you posted on social media 2 weeks ago.
Right.
If it worked, figure out how to repurpose it, share it. People are there and gone in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Show up that way, give them the goods and get them, onto their regularly scrolling program.
That's so great. I love that. That was so good. Yeah. I heard somebody once describe social media. I think she was talking about Twitter.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago when Twitter was Twitter. And she said, it's almost like you drop a pebble in a stream. The stream just keeps going. Like, don't worry about it so much, but we do want to care and obviously lift someone up, or at least that's always my goal. I don't want to put that on everyone else, but it's always to at least lift someone up or make them think or give them a little bit of a different perspective on what we just take for granted all day, every day.
And one more point to that is anytime you're creating content, you don't have to do it like everybody else. One of my clients was like, I think I should be doing trends. And I was like, I don't think you should be doing trends. She's like, no, we're going to do them. I was like, okay. She was not successful because her audience could tell that didn't feel authentic to her, to who she was. As soon as she started doing the talking head videos, her numbers went up
again. Yeah. Okay. So it's really using our strengths. And I think you do something else that I really love, because it goes so perfectly in line with our conversation today. And that is that we don't want to look at social media as an end all be all for perfection, right? That it is even in our own numbers. How did that one perform? How did this one do? And you are, I think, a big proponent of adjusting and learning and tweaking and changing. And I'd love to know more about what you teach people around that and what your philosophy is in how we can learn to be better producers of social media.
Absolutely. It's all starts with auditing where you're at right now. That is the biggest thing. People ignore the numbers because they feel hard to understand. And you know what? They're not wrong. They're tough to understand, tough to unpack. If you're like, I feel like nothing's working. Okay, press the pause button, take a deep breath, friend, and look at your numbers. See what they're telling you. What story are they telling you? But also keeping in mind, to the point we mentioned earlier, what's happening in the world around us. People might not be consuming as much. I know this is for my business currently, Q4 so far, even though, it's been rough, right? People are holding on to their cash flow and that's okay, but there's other behaviors happening. So are you paying attention to that as well as what the numbers are saying and marrying the two in order to create content or even maybe a tweak or adjust offers accordingly to get people in for the following year? So looking at the numbers and measuring what matters. And if you're like, well, what does matter? It goes back to understanding, why are you doing social media in the first place? And if it's because everyone else is doing it, that's not a good answer. So what are the goals? Like, are you trying to get people to your website? Are you trying to get engagement on your content internally and externally, right? We can talk a little bit about that when we hop into the CTA conversation, but that is where it all starts, is looking at what's working based on your goal and doing more of that and less of the stuff that's not. And your unique footprint in social is different. Obviously, it's unique compared to everyone else in your industry that you think you should be modeling your stuff after.
Yeah.
So measure, tweak, test, repeat.
I love that. And because one of my favorite phrases I always talk to my clients is what you measure changes. And if we ignore, right, if we don't measure, we have no idea what works. And so what we measure actually changes. So that's super helpful. Okay. So let's get into the calls to action for people who don't know. CTA, right? Call to action. Most people know that now because we all talk about it all the time. But all right, let's talk about calls to action that most people probably aren't using in social media. Like, what are the missed opportunities? Where have we not been able to engage where we probably could?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is to decide when you're creating your content, do you want to have, based on your goals again, are you creating a call to action that is an internal call to action or external? So internal means content that's right on the platform to keep people engaged on the platform. External, on the flip side, is used, to get people from the platform to direct them off platform to your website, to your landing page, to your registration page.
Okay.
So that's like the first thing you have to decide. And again, all of that should tie back to your goal. Or if you're running a campaign for like, I don't know, a workshop launch or something, right? You have it all kind of is structured there because you have to think about, am I looking to grow my engagement? Am I looking to grow my following? Am I looking to drive more traffic, get more downloads and more leads? And you have to kind of meet your audience where they're at. And so for internal examples, it's taking the time after your paragraph or whatever I call it like the meat and potatoes of your caption to tell people what to do. And it's a missed opportunity for a lot of us. I think those of us in the marketing space, it's like, well, yeah, duh, like learn more, here's the link. But from an internal perspective on platform, it can be simple as save for later, double tap if you found this helpful. Insert drop a thumbs up emoji if you agree. If you found this helpful, share it with your community, send me a DM. And then one thing that I've been seeing a lot, and I'm sure you've seen this too, is where it asks like a question like, are you in? Comment with I'm in to get the link directly to your DMs, which I love. And that's done. That's very much like a power user move. But that's done with like a chat bot, so someone leaves a comment and it automatically sends them the link or a little ditty with a note and a link to get started. But you also have to remember the behaviors of the platforms. Facebook, Pinterest, and LinkedIn, people are used to leaving the platform and going somewhere else.
Right. Very different from like Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instagram where it's all like in the same vein. And that's,
you're like, you cannot leave ever.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's where you have to drive the conversation and the connection and the community, which I love about Instagram. It allows you to have more of that community feel and driving people to the direct, the DMs to get the extra information, because link in bio these days,
I'm so sick of it. I mean, I have to use it too, but it's like, oh my goodness, there's so many links in there. Yeah.
And I started doing like, in some cases, asking people to just DM me for the link, and then I can start a conversation with people. And so that's been great because they're like, oh, there's a real human behind here. And then so just thinking about how you can add some type of action at the end for the person to do. People are not mind readers, and you have to make it simple.
Okay.
I had a client one time that wanted to I'm obviously exaggerating, but they're like, tell me your life story. It's like, that hurts my brain,
Right.
Like,
I don't want to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you think about it, people are scrolling while they're watching, the news, or they're scrolling while they're, trying to wind down at night before bed and like falling asleep, with their phone in their hand. Not that I've done that.
Oh, it hurts my heart. We've all done that.
I know.
So embarrassing and terrible, but yes.
So it's trying to figure out, what, and testing a lot of them in the beginning to figure out what are people resonating with? And at the same time, what are some of those external examples, that you could obviously put on the screen as well if you're doing a reel or a video, making sure that you're having those opportunities, because the external calls to action that link outward are essentially the dot connectors, taking people from that like water cooler conversation on social onto a place where you actually own the data,
Right.
AKA your website. So like if, that is the biggest thing, is how can you get people from social to your website or social to your landing page to do something, to give them your email address in exchange for something of value. Because
Right.
you own your email address, because tomorrow Zuckerberg's like, you know what?
That's
This has
right.
been really fun. We're going to call it quits. Yeah.
It's over. Yeah, I know.
Mhm.
I've shared that with a lot of people. I have several clients who are huge on YouTube, or they have massive Instagram followings. And I'm like, that is wonderful. They can all be gone tomorrow and there's nothing you can do, right? Because we all tap through that little accept on the terms and
Oh
conditions.
yeah.
And what that says is, we own this, you don't, thanks. Right. So really, really owning and getting people maybe off the platform from time to time, places where you can start conversations with them, and telling people what to do directly, that these are all really important things that we can do on social media. And I'd also love to know, Karlyn, what do you think about using social media, not just for calls to action? Should there always be a calls to action? So that's question number one. And, or can we use it as that touch point, just to have somebody become familiar with our business and what we do without a call to action? I'd love to know what you think about that.
I'm a big fan of always have a call to action, even
Okay.
if it's a subtle one. So like, just because it's good, because social media is supposed to be a conversation, right? So how can you get people to start a conversation back with you?
Love it.
So even if it's like, save this for later, like if you're giving a whole list of tips, save this for later so you can come back to it. Or if dropping a thumbs up if you agree, like little tiny ones that are easy to take action on. Or which one did you prefer? Or do you relate to this? And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, when I post content that is super polarizing about my industry, it like attracts people like a magnet and repels the people who are not for me. And it is the best.
Wow. That's so amazing. I love the second part of what you said, is it repels the people who aren't for you. I'm just such a big believer in that, because I think, the wrong people in your business, the wrong people purchasing from you, the wrong people interacting with you, is just so damaging. It's damaging to time, energy, revenue, and reputation too. So that's so great. So I think we should add that to metrics we track, right? Like, what repels the wrong people? Like, that is so important. I think we forget it sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the semantic of the comments and the replies that you're getting in the DMs. I think one thing that I shared, and it was simple, it was like, I really wish people would stop randomly tagging me on LinkedIn in their post. For a while, people were doing that. And I was like, oh, someone tagged me. Then I look and it's like about their insurance. And I was like,
knock it off.
what's happening? I'm like, if this is good
Completely.
content, I will see it. Don't worry. But like, you don't need to tag me just because like we're friends and we network like that. Like that's not.
Don't do that. Yeah, I agree. No, but that is literally my response when somebody does that, is knock it off, man. Like, we are all so busy and we're doing so much. And when someone tags you, that's why I hate the alt tag on Facebook.
Oh,
It's like,
I know.
it's like, you guys were so busy. And if you're actually not wanting to talk to me, it actually diminishes any other time somebody is wanting to talk to me or does want to tag me, because I start to ignore it. And it just does everybody such a disservice. It's so yucky. But you have found that igniting that conversation helps repel the wrong people who would tag you or tag all. Yes. I love it. I love it.
I'm like, okay. And people, and then there's other people that are like, oh, I hate when that happens. Like there's those people that are like, oh my gosh, I see that all the time. How do we make it stop? Like, so those are my people. So it's, and so don't be afraid. This kind of comes full circle with the authenticity piece of like, don't be afraid to share your opinions based on your experience with your audience who needs what you have.
Love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Karlyn, this has just been amazing. Thank you so much for being so open. I know this conversation kind of went all over the place, but you know what? So does social media. So it's kind of fitting. But I understand you also have a gift for our audience. Do you want to share about that and let us know what we can do to stay in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can go to osnapsocial.com/resources. I got a ton of downloads for you all that I'm constantly updating. So with the latest and greatest information. So go ahead and go there and download it. You can also hang out with me on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm over in those two places the most. I'm everywhere, but those two places are my jam. So yeah, I hope to connect with you all and see you through the screen.
I love it. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it. And here's to social media where we all get to be human.
Amen. Thank you.